Hello, podcast fam. I am thrilled to share some exciting news. My book, So Grow Lead, is officially live on Amazon. This book is more than just my story of starting a nonprofit and building a peanut butter factory in Malawi. Though trust me, the ups and downs of that journey are worth the read. It's also packed with practical strategies to help nonprofit leaders like you tackle challenges with clarity, courage, and a whole lot of heart. If you've ever wondered how to turn your vision into reality, navigate the inevitable hurdles, and build something meaningful, whether in your organization or in your own life, this book is for you. I'd be so grateful for your support in spreading the word. Grab your copy of So Grow Lead in the show notes and on Amazon today. Let's keep sowing seeds of impact together. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast, which is dedicated to nonprofit leaders who are passionate about making a difference. I'm your host, Haley Cooper, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on a journey of growth, inspiration, and transformation. At Lead with Heart, we believe that leading with heart means embracing empathy, compassion, and authenticity in every aspect of our work. It's about putting people first, fostering genuine connections, and creating a positive impact that goes beyond numbers and metrics. In the nonprofit world, it can often feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. The challenges are immense, and the road can be lonely. But here, you're not alone. This podcast is a community where we support each other, share our stories, and learn together. Each episode will dive into personal and professional development topics tailored specifically for nonprofit leaders. From innovative fundraising strategies and effective team management to self-care practices and leadership insights, we're here to provide you with practical strategies that you can apply to your life and work. My goal is to empower you, elevate your leadership, and engage your heart in all that you do. I want to help you navigate the unique challenges of the nonprofit sector with confidence and resilience, so you can continue to create meaningful change in the world. So whether you're driving to a meeting, taking a break, or winding down for the day, tune in and join us on this journey. Together, we'll discover what it truly means to lead with heart. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to the Lead with Heart podcast. This is your host, Haley Cooper, where we delve deep into the inspiring stories and actionable insights of leaders and experts who are making a positive impact in their community. And today, I have a special episode lined up for you. My guest, Julia, is behind the Relatable Nonprofit with her partner, Kat. And these two trailblazers left their six-figure nonprofit jobs in their mid-20s to start their own consulting agency. And over the past 2 years, they've not only built a successful business, but also launched Relatable Nonprofit to empower other growth-driven women with nonprofit hearts to succeed in consulting. And like I was telling Julia before we hit record, I've been following them on Instagram for a while, and I swear it's not creepy. It's just 2024. So I am very selfishly excited for this conversation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I would love to know, you made a bold move by leaving your six-figure nonprofit job to start your own consulting agency. Can you share what motivated you to take this leap, and how did you navigate the transition from nonprofit work to consulting?
Yeah, it's really cool that I get to talk about this now, because I know so many people in the nonprofit sector are thinking about making a career change. And I think other sectors as well. It's just a really interesting time for work and how people work and the different opportunities becoming available to us with remote work and things like that. But I got into nonprofit work right out of college. I was a grant writer that came after a development internship. And I think that's the experience a lot of people have, because they don't really go to college saying, I'm going to go work in nonprofits. It's usually a mission finds them or something speaks to them and they end up getting into this kind of work. So that was me. And within a few years of working in this nonprofit, I'd gone from development intern to grant writer to grants manager to major gift manager. And then due to turnover and staffing changes, I found myself as development director at 24 years old, which was a lot of responsibility, a $7 million budget to raise. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun, but it was also very, very taxing and a lot of time spent working, a lot of pressure at a very young age to be performing and meeting those financial goals. So 2021, I knew that I wanted to change. I was thinking about going back to school, getting a master's degree, just figuring out where I wanted to go from there. When my friend Kat, who had actually been my supervisor when I was an intern and she had gone on to work at a foundation, she reached out to me and she said she basically heard that I was quitting my job and she was thinking about quitting her as well and wanted to know if I would go in on a consulting business with her. I had nothing better going on at the time. I really didn't know which path I wanted to take. And so I said, okay, let's try it. She already had one nonprofit that was looking for some support. I said, well, what the heck? Let's just take this client on and see what happens. And within 6 weeks, we had a business up and running. We had this one client. And from there, we built out our services, which at the time was mostly focused on CRM support and the technology support behind development programs, which we found was really lacking in the nonprofits that we were working with. So that was how we transitioned. And it was bumpy and not super straightforward. And we changed things a lot along the way. And then last year, we launched the Relatable Nonprofit Instagram account, where we started talking really a lot about our experience working with different nonprofits and the challenges that we were seeing inside of them, things that we were hearing from the nonprofit professionals that we were working with on different projects. And something that we kept noticing is that a lot of the people we were working with, a lot of the organizations were really dealing with this turnover challenge and that they're not able to keep full-time roles filled. And that was where we were being brought in a lot of the time to supplement that labor and keep things moving within these organizations. So that account, Relatable Nonprofit, has since taken off and we have a few thousand followers there. And we are pivoting our services a little bit now more to support nonprofit professionals as they transition in their careers and are looking for more flexible working arrangements.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you so much for sharing. I have a similar story of being thrown into nonprofits as a leader, as an executive director at age 24, and got to learn as I go a lot of the way. It's made me more resilient and a better leader today. But yeah, and I think a lot of people can relate to your story as well of having to fill a role because it's now vacant and you're the only person in the organization to be able to do so. And it's hard to say no when you're like, my commitment is to the mission and driving it forward. And obviously development is a huge part of that. And I think let's talk about some of those challenges before we dive into the social retention report. Let's dive into some of those challenges that you were seeing in nonprofits that you were working with and why that made you really pivot the work that you do.
My own experience watching positions go unfilled and then having someone come to me and say, hey, we're not really sure how to fill this position or we're not sure what we need help with. Can you just take on this work for now? That was something I would see when I was in-house. And then a lot of times the projects that we were being brought in on, we had partnerships set up with a lot of CRMs. So they would bring us in on projects when a new nonprofit was looking to get onboarded or needed support with their migration. And one in particular, I remember we had the nonprofit reach out to us. They said, hey, you were recommended to us as a consultant. We said, sure, we'll talk to you. And they needed help onboarding onto this new CRM software, which I'm sure everyone probably knows, but this is like donor database development software. And in the 2 weeks that we did the discovery call, we did the sales process and we got started with this nonprofit. When we actually went to do the first call, the person that we had been working with in the last 2 weeks to get hired with this nonprofit had actually put in their 2 weeks and had left. And it turned out that their last act as a nonprofit employee there was to bring us in because they actually knew that they were leaving. And we would have this happen time and again where we would just get an email saying, hey, we know you were working with so-and-so on this project. They just quit. You're going to be working with this person now. And just this revolving door, musical chairs situation. And then when we would actually be working with these teams and helping them set up the software, we would just hear from them, oh, that position for major gift officer has been open for 6 months. The data analyst position, that's been open for 8 months. We haven't had anyone fill it. We've just been filling in the gaps. And I hear this all the time now from the people that follow us on Relatable Nonprofit that they're just expected to take on roles that are going unfilled. And it's not because there's a lack of talent, but it just seems that nonprofits are only looking to fill these full-time roles because they're not super aware that they can maybe be bringing in consultants to fill these gaps in really cost-effective ways. So we're really trying to raise awareness about that now, that not only are nonprofit professionals transitioning into this sort of consulting side gig role, but also that nonprofits need to know, how do we find these people and how might we be able to bring them in a cost-effective way to bridge these gaps rather than trying to find a full-time employee and then come up with work for them. Maybe we just need someone to come in and do this certain project or 10 hours a week, and it's going to be cost effective for both the consultant who wants a flexible schedule and the nonprofit that doesn't want a full-time employee.
Imagine a fundraising partner that not only helps you raise more money, but also supports you in retaining your donors. A partner that helps you raise funds both online and on location so you can grow your impact faster. That's DonorBox, a comprehensive suite of tools, services, and resources that give fundraisers just like you a custom solution to tackle your unique challenges, helping you achieve the growth and sustainability your organization needs, helping you help others. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. Yeah, I think that's such an important perspective. And you mentioned something when we were talking about this off screen, off podcast, like you said, some positions go vacant. And I am hearing that a lot from executive directors that I've been speaking with. There's some sort of barrier or challenge. And I don't think it's a lack of talent pool, like you said, but I would love to know what your insight is on why are organizations struggling to find and retain quality people?
Yeah, and it's difficult because I think boards and executive directors are very focused on program work. And obviously, those are nonprofit roles as well. The roles that I find very challenging to fill and the ones that you're seeing this turnover in are the fundraising, the development, the marketing roles, the digital marketing, social media, these roles that are not necessarily boots on the ground program work, but it's still really important for disseminating the message and raising awareness and bringing in funds, the marketing of the organization. And that's a little bit more of a small business or for-profit type work within the organization. It's not necessarily volunteer coordination or event coordination, things like that, or you're actually producing the program work of the mission. And I think that and I believe you said you were an executive director of a nonprofit, so you understand you're focused on fulfilling the mission. And so a lot of times these development roles, marketing roles, an executive director might not have the knowledge of what it takes to fill those roles. And HR departments, I know a lot of times don't. And I would see job descriptions being posted that just don't really make sense for what they're hiring for. And I think that's part of the problem is they're not drafting these job descriptions correctly, or they're expecting too much from one role, or they're not vetting people properly when they're bringing them in full time. So you're getting this mismatch between what the organization thinks they need and then what they might actually need, which can be difficult. They know they need to raise money. They know they need to raise awareness about their mission, but do they have the deep knowledge set necessary to vet someone on their marketing skills or on their fundraising skills or to know exactly how to structure a development team? I think that's a completely different skill set from managing a nonprofit. And so a lot of times there's just a mismatch between what they're looking for and what they're getting.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And a lot of the conversations I have, I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice sometimes, but it's really about education. It's if you want to hire me or you want to hire a director of development, you have to have these certain pieces in place. Otherwise, that person isn't going to meet their expectations, not for a lack of skill or talent, but it's like a lack of that expectation and like goal setting grounded in reality of what this role can actually carry out, and lack of education as well of, like you said, what development is. So what are some of those skill sets that nonprofits should be looking for when fulfilling these roles, and how can they set up these people for success?
Yeah, so I saw a really interesting conversation happening on LinkedIn the other day talking about development and marketing roles and how a lot of people are advertising this is a joint position. You're the development and marketing manager or director. And there was a really interesting discussion happening in the comments about how these roles are continuing to become integrated and overlapping a lot because particularly with social media and digital marketing, email marketing, these things are now really overflowing into the development work that people were traditionally doing through phone calls and in-person meetings and events. But now it's a lot more email marketing focused and social media marketing focused. So, and having web pages that are optimized for mobile and donation forms and all of the things that go into having an effective sales funnel essentially for your development program. So I think understanding, and I think that nonprofits can actually take a lot of training from small businesses and look at what small businesses are doing and learning for literally building sales funnels. I think a lot of nonprofits should be doing the exact same thing and just having that targeted towards donors. But in terms of how to hire for these positions, I think typically what happens is someone says, okay, we need to raise money. We need to hire someone who knows how to fundraise. They say, let's just get a fundraiser in here and then we'll come up with jobs for them to do. And that's a little bit backwards. And I don't know how you do it except through education from training courses or consultants coming in and auditing their program. And I've seen this done successfully, sitting down with them. We've actually done a few of these successfully, sitting down with a nonprofit and saying, let's go through everything that you've done and you've tried to date and really come up with a strategic plan for what a fundraising program would look like for you. And then we can help you draft these job descriptions and what the program would look like. Then we're going to try to market for these positions because right now they're putting the cart before the horse. Mm-hmm. And they're just looking for someone who knows how to raise money without thinking about what kind of program they want to build.
Yeah, I love that. And I've seen that as well. Like they want someone to come in and have contacts that they can bring in and acquire new donors. And that's not really how, one, that's not ethical, but also that's not how that works. And also, yeah, every time I have to have that clear delineation as a consultant that I'm a savvy fundraiser, not a savvy marketer. I always say I'm a millennial who does not know anything about social media. Right. I could probably figure it out, but there are dedicated people with that skill set. And that takes extra effort for me. And so if I'm focusing my time on social media as a fundraiser, that's going to take my time away from actually interacting with my donors. If I'm trying to figure out how to do an ad or how to engage with people on social media, that's important. And that is a role in and of itself. But for me as a fundraiser, my role is to be cultivating and stewarding our donors. And I think there is that clear delineation, but we also work together, right? We have to collaborate, but there has to be that clear delineation of roles because if you expect someone to do a lot, like I was talking on a LinkedIn Live earlier that you could be productive, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're effective. So you could be doing all the things, but are you effective in moving the mission forward? And I think that's where that clear job description and expectations is important.
Yeah, no, it's really funny that you mentioned like this sort of naive thing where nonprofits want to hire you for your contact list because we've had one of our most successful posts actually on Instagram was about the nonprofit that just says, oh, we just need Mackenzie Scott's cell phone number. If we could just get her cell phone number, we'll get in front of her, we'll pitch her, she'll totally love us. And that's all we need. That we just need one really rich person to fund our mission. And unfortunately, yes, occasionally that will happen, but that is not a replacement for building a successful development program that's sustainable and that you can rely on year after year and to really grow a base. So I think there is some education that needs to happen for these more program-oriented people and leadership at nonprofits about how building a development program, building a marketing program really is like building a sales funnel for a business. And it should be treated like that. It's not just hiring a person who has got a really great list of contacts or a Rolodex, like one of my bosses used to call it, even though I don't know what a Rolodex is.
Yeah, one of my first hiring experiences, literally someone brought in a notebook of all their contacts. And that was like so I thought that was normal. And then years later as a consultant, I'm like, wait, no, there's something wrong with that. Yeah. And I think like you said, building out that foundation and successes, let's say you get $1 million from Mackenzie Scott. Well, it's going to dry up in a certain amount of time. What are you going to do to backfill that $1 million? And we could talk about that all day long, but
Right,
not the
exactly.
purpose of this conversation. So when your team first reached out to me, they sent me this social impact staff retention report, which I hadn't seen before. And it says 74% of nonprofit employees are looking for or considering a new job this year. And 65% are unsure if they will stay within this sector at all. And this could be due to burnout, benefits, or the general shift in how we work post-COVID. And this is happening although the need for nonprofits continues to grow. So how can consulting provide a viable and fulfilling alternative for those experiencing burnout or dissatisfaction in traditional nonprofit roles? Hey there, podcast family. If you're like me and deeply committed to improving your leadership skills and fostering better connections with your team, I've got something truly amazing to share with you. I'm proud to introduce the EMC Masterclass, something I talk about often as a certified trainer. It's an incredible program developed by the renowned Dr. Lola Gershfeld, an organizational psychologist and corporate emotional connection expert. You might remember her from a podcast episode where she shared invaluable insights into the world of emotional connection. Dr. Gershfeld's EMC Leaders courses are designed for anyone working with people. Whether you're a manager, supervisor, team leader, educator, coach, mentor, or a team member. This program is truly for everyone looking to enhance their communication and collaboration skills to raise more revenue for their mission. Now, let me tell you why the EMC Masterclass is a game changer. Dr. Gershfeld's groundbreaking emotional connection process has been integrated into top universities' curriculum and recognized by international organizations like ICF, HRCI, and SHRM. Humans are wired to seek emotional safety, and when we feel safe, we're more likely to take risks, share innovative ideas, and collaborate effectively. The EMC process is the catalyst for creating that emotional safety within your team. The virtual EMC Masterclass consists of 8 modules with 4 hours of expertly recorded material, 13 quizzes to reinforce your learning, and a workbook filled with activities for offline practice and something I still refer to daily. Ready to become an emotional connection master? Dr. Gershfeld is offering an exclusive detail for our podcast listeners. Use the code LEADWITHHEART to enjoy a generous 10% discount on the EMC Masterclass. Head over to emcleaders.com and enroll in the EMC Masterclass today.
Yeah, so ever since I've seen that report, we've just been shouting it from the rooftops because any executive directors who are listening right now, that means that 3 out of 4 employees, or 75% of your employees, are thinking about getting a new job. So that's a very serious retention issue. On the nonprofit professional side, for those individuals who are thinking about a new job, you and I both made this transition in the last few years, 2022, I think, for both of us. And I know 24 people who've done the same thing in the last 4 years. I think we need to get rid of this more traditional understanding of the word consulting, because I think a lot of people believe that this is, oh, you're retired, you work with a big firm, it's like McKinsey or something, and you're just this big shot consultant who flies in, you're wearing a nice suit, and you come in and charge like $1 billion. So until we get a better word for consulting, that's what we're going to be going with. But I've been hearing people say solo entrepreneurs, and I really like that as well, because what people are really doing is realizing that if they have a good skill, they can go directly to the marketplace in the sector with that skill, and they can charge based on the value of that skill rather than just getting paid a salary and being expected to show up for 40 hours a week. Because I think people are getting smart to the fact that just because you're being paid to show up and fill a chair doesn't mean that it's a great use of your time. And there are better ways to make money based on the value that you're providing. So people who are turning to consulting, maybe only part-time. I definitely don't work 40 hours a week compared to what I used to be working, where I'd have to be answering emails late, taking phone calls on the weekend. and not getting paid any extra for that time. Now I'm able to set my schedule. I'm able to work when I want to, work on the projects that I want to work on, and really have a lot more control over my time and also my ability to make what I want to make financially from my business. And it's really been a lot easier than a lot of people would probably think that it is. It's really not that hard to set up a business. It's more so selecting a specialty, building around things that you like to do. So if you love email marketing, you can build a consulting business around being a really savvy email marketer. And you can take those skills directly to the nonprofits in your circle. It's very easy to get connected with them on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Facebook. There's a lot of creative ways to reach people. And you sell them a value-based service where you're going to help them do setup. You're going to help them run a campaign, whatever it is that you want to offer. And it's something that you can offer in a replicable way where you can take on a couple nonprofits at a time. You can have a pipeline of projects or retainer clients, and you can replace your salary doing this, working part-time and just doing the things that you want to do. And we were able to do that within a year of leaving our jobs. And I've seen a lot of other people who've been very successful doing it. And you can work from anywhere. So since we've done that, both Catalina and I moved. I actually was able to do a 3-month trip last summer to Italy while working the whole time. And we made more money that summer than we made the last summer. So it really doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. You can make a living doing this, and you're no longer tied to that 9-to-5 schedule where you have to be in person every day. So I think it's very attractive to a lot of people. And if 75% of people are unhappy with what they're doing, I think we're going to see a lot more people shifting into this kind of work.
In my first year of consulting, I made more than I ever made in an actual traditional role. And I was in a director level. And so I think there is a lot of opportunity. And for me, when I stepped out, I was like coming hot off of wearing all the hats. And I was like, I could do grants, I could do campaigns. And then this year I've like really narrowed down like what I want to be an expert in and what I want to be known for. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, I could do, like, I have a skill set in everything, right? Like, what's your advice for them to really hone down on a specific skill set? How do they find those strengths? And then how do they then build a program that they can offer to nonprofits?
Yeah, so this is what we focus on a lot in our mentorship program. What we do with people who are coming in, they're nonprofit professionals, they're getting ready to make that switch. That's pretty much the first question that everyone has. What should my niche be? What services should I offer? And we have a bit of a process that we walk them through for how to select that. And it's fun because you get to actually pick what you want to do. And we really want you to start by thinking about what you like to do. Because if you don't like the work that you're doing, you're not going to focus on doing this every day and doing it well. So we like to ask people to literally write down a list. And another thing that people love to say in nonprofits, and you just said it, is wearing all the hats. So I know if you are a nonprofit fundraiser or marketer, chances are, executive director, you've worn a lot of the different hats that go into making this nonprofit work. You have a ton of skills. The mistake that we made when we first started is we made our website, we made our little logo, we made everything, and then we listed out on our website every single skill that the two of us had together. 32 different skills. We can do direct mail, we can do email marketing, we can do graphic design, we can do copywriting. And it was a huge waste of time because you're completely diluting yourself as a specialist, as an expert, by just saying you know how to do a little bit of everything. And when we got rid of all of that and we just focused in on something that we were good at and we liked doing, which was the CRM setup, we were much more effective at getting clients. So the first thing that you do is think about everything that you know how to do, but then think about what you really enjoy doing and could see yourself doing every day for your job. So once you pick that, and a lot of people like grant writing, but you can be really unique with it. I've seen some really great ideas. I know some people who are becoming planned giving specialists. I know people who are offering accounting support to nonprofits. I know a couple of people right now in our program who are offering nonprofit startup packages, helping people who want to start their own nonprofit file the paperwork. And I know some people who are also just offering website and graphic design setup. So there's a whole host of things that you can do. If I started over, I would probably do email marketing because I really like doing email marketing. But once you know what you like to do, then it's just a matter of now going out to your network and having meetings with them and not asking for jobs, but just listening to them and having these listening sessions where you're asking them about the gaps in their organization related to that specialty that you've selected. And that's going to help you reverse engineer what kind of services you're going to offer, because you'll start to hear themes where people are saying, yeah, we really struggle with this. And you hear that a couple of times. You're like, well, maybe I can develop a package that addresses that specific concern. And the more specialized you can get and the more productized that package becomes, the easier it becomes for you to sell it, where you're not reinventing the wheel every time with a brand new scope of work and a brand new proposal.
Yeah, I love that framework. And once people have decided this is where I'm going to niche down, how do they then start promoting? I obviously have my own thoughts on this, and I've had Tanya Bhattacharya on the podcast from Loomis Marketing, who talks a lot about thought leadership on LinkedIn. Obviously, you guys have used Instagram, so there's like a host of places people can build their thought leadership. So how do they do that in alliance with related to their business and then driving leads to secure contracts?
The best way to approach that is the same way that you approach your niche. You have to pick a channel, and I would suggest just picking one to start that you like, that you enjoy doing. So if it's writing blogs, if it's hosting a podcast, if it's posting memes on Instagram, if it's making YouTube videos, if it's thought leadership on LinkedIn, I think each platform has its own benefits and can be used to build a funnel. But it's got to be something that you feel confident and comfortable doing consistently. And if it's not, and we've tried different things that we didn't like doing, like writing blogs, for instance, you won't do it every week. And if you don't do it every week, you're not marketing yourself. So when we came up with the idea for the Instagram, that really sparked for us. And we really were having so much fun making the memes and then connecting with the community. That was the marketing platform that took off for us. And now that we've built that to 5,000 or so followers, we have a lot of engagement there. We've built some funnels with our Instagram. We've now started moving into LinkedIn and starting to post there and connect with people there. And there's a lot of overlap actually from people from our Instagram account now connecting with us on the LinkedIn side. I think LinkedIn's wonderful. I think there's a lot of benefits to Instagram as well. So it's really what you're comfortable with. But I would say to pick one platform and use that consistently, because trying to do 3 or 4 all at once is just going to create this massive overwhelm when you're also trying to acquire clients and run a consulting business.
Yeah, I think that's so important to focus and what works well for you and then do more of that rather than scrambling. Like I said, like I'm not a savvy marketer. So yeah, I post on Instagram, but it's very sporadic and probably it doesn't have a strategy. Whereas like with LinkedIn, I have more of a strategy on how I want to build out my thought leadership. So I think that's really important. And I think the most important thing for people is to hit send on that first post.
Yes.
Because that is the biggest thing that keeps people from actually promoting their business. And I've done this in my own world, which is funny because like I'm a fundraiser. So I pitched a mission my whole career and then it came to myself and I was like, I can't push the send button.
Yeah, I completely resonate and agree with that. It's really hard when you're promoting yourself. It's like all your expertise goes right out the window because you have all of this like insecurity about yourself that you wouldn't have when you're promoting someone else's mission. My way around that personally is scheduling posts, because if I schedule it for 2 days from now, by the time it goes out, I've forgotten about it. So when I see it posted, I'm like, not having the anxiety that I would if I actually had to hit send and watch it go live. So yeah, so for LinkedIn and for Instagram, everything is scheduled in advance. And that also helps just with time management, batching your content and then scheduling it. But for me, that's a major way to overcome the roadblock because I physically cannot post stuff on our feed. And that's a huge part of our program, but I cannot do it because I get anxiety around it. So I think for that, things like the scheduling tool or hiring someone to help you with that is a huge change.
Yeah. And I think also batching content is important too, because then you like have what you want to say, like you have that consistent flow of what you want to pitch. And I always know there's like a buildup. But yeah, I think that's important to batch your content and then have it all flow to the same thing, which is your business. Relatable Nonprofit focuses on empowering growth-driven women with nonprofit hearts to succeed in consulting. Why did you choose this particular demographic, and how do your program and resources specifically cater to their needs?
Yeah, so it is targeted towards women and nonprofit professional women. We do actually have men in the program as well. So playing a little bit with that messaging because it isn't only women, but we do find that 85% of the followers on Relatable Nonprofit, when we look at the analytics, are women. So we are targeting our resources to serve them. And I think that reflects the industry at large is very women heavy, I suppose you could say, and just for the roles that are filled, especially fundraising roles, marketing roles, design roles. So these creative, people focused roles, you just tend to find women in. And we really wanted to build a program that we could have used when we were getting started. That's really what we were thinking about 2 years into the business, everything that we learned. We have rules now where we cannot text each other in the middle of the night because for the first year of building the business, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., we'd wake up, we'd have an idea about the business, and we'd be texting back and forth. And it was way worse when Catalina had her second baby because she's up all night with the baby. And we're literally just all night long texting about the business and learning so much, but also struggling so much to just educate yourself, not only about how to be an excellent consultant, but also how to be an excellent business owner, how to do the administration for your business, the operations, how to build products, how to use technology, who to hire, when to hire, how to pay yourselves. So all of these structures that we had to build for ourselves from scratch with basically no insight. When lo and behold, it turns out there's all kinds of consultants out there who have figured this all out years ago. And so a way for us to really elevate our business was when we hired our first business coach. And we also joined a women's PR community. And these two groups that we joined when we finally had a little bit of money in the bank and we were able to afford things like this rapidly helped us grow the business in a way that prior it was inching along. But once we joined these groups, the access to information really reduced that learning curve for us in such an incredible way. So when we were developing our own business program to help people who were just getting started and making this transition, we really wanted to hone in on that demographic of people following us, who we know 75% are probably thinking about transitioning out of their jobs. And we wanted to build a program with all of the information that we had gathered in the last 2 years to give them that support right away that we did not get until about 18 months in.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned something about texting all night and having to set those boundaries. And I attended a conference a few months ago that was talking about people pleasing and setting boundaries. And I think, especially in development roles and in program, I think throughout nonprofits, boundaries get blurred. And I was interviewing for a job a few months ago, and they were like, well, if our board chair is going to text you at 8, because that's when she starts to do her work after a busy day, you have to be available. And I'm like, for me, that value doesn't align because that's me spending time with my kids, putting them to bed. And I had to be really clear about, is this a value that I can blur for this? Or am I going to be resentful later that I have to answer an email at 8 p.m. and not be with my kids, putting them to bed? And so how can consultants coming hot out of a director of development role or development role where those boundaries are blurred, learn how to set clear boundaries with their clients? And I think also, like, it's important to, if I tell a client, my job is 10 to 5, you cannot text me after 5, but I respond to a text, like, someone's going to encroach on my boundary and be like, oh, she texted me, so that's not really a thing for her. And then they're going to keep doing that. So, like, how can consultants get clear on those boundaries and stick to them?
Yeah, I love this question because when we had this first incident with a client, when we had just gotten started, I literally saw before my eyes all of this new freedom that we had gotten by becoming consultants just melting away by answering that text after hours or on the weekend, or realizing that a certain client was feeling like they could just treat us like a full-time employee when that was not what we were. That was not the scope of the work. And I was just giving them work for free. And I remember so distinctly calling Kat and being like, we cannot do this again. This is literally, there's no reason to even be doing all of this work to build a business and to become consultants if we're just going to let ourselves get steamrolled again the way that we did when we were in these full-time roles. So I remember being so nervous and having to send this message to the client saying, hey, listen, if you want to reach me for accountability purposes, for streamlining, for effectiveness, so that I can be the best consultant for you, I need you to email me at my work email between these hours, and someone from my team will get back to you. But I'm not going to be responsive on text because it's just going to get messy. If you're texting me here, emailing me there, I need everything in a chain on my email where we can see it. And she was very respectful and responsive to that. But going through that exercise, which was, super scary to tell a client no, because when you're early on as a consultant, you don't ever want to say no to your client. You want them to feel like you're super available. But that was a very empowering moment in our business. And we realized you totally can say no. And in fact, you should, because it is going to make you more respectable as a consultant. It's going to make them take you more seriously. And it's going to show them that your time is very limited and it's very valuable. And if they want to work with you, they want the privilege of working with you, then they need to abide by these rules. And I actually think that it creates a more effective and fruitful relationship, because if you can't manage your boundaries with the client and you're letting them run all over you, you're probably failing to manage things and regulate things in other areas of your consulting work. So the better that you can say, these are our hours. We take off the 2 weeks between Christmas and New Year's. Around that time, we always take off. We just put a note for our clients that we're not going to be available these 2 weeks. We're closing down shop. If you need anything, you need to get it to us before that date. And everyone's always very respectful of that. But these are the choices that you get to make as a consultant. It's challenging to have that mindset shift. But the more that you learn to say no to, the more that you're saying yes to the things that you want to do and to structuring your life in the way that you intentionally want to live it. So the boundaries that Kat and I have even set for each other are really important, that we have certain meetings at certain times. We don't do the 3 a.m. brain dump where we're texting occasionally, but much less. And that's really protecting your sanity and structuring your business in such a way that it's not just you getting run all over the place. I also, after that particular client, stopped giving out my cell phone number to clients. So that personally for me, that was a very bold move. And I will not give anyone my cell phone number except friends and family. So that's just something personal for me.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And earlier this year, when someone was like, Haley, what are you excited about in your business for this year? And I was like, say no. My first year, like I said, I was like, I'll do your campaigns, I'll do your grant writing, because I wanted to chase the money. But then I wasn't performing my best, or the campaign would fall flat because I wasn't actually utilizing my best experience and what I could actually offer the client, and wasn't clear on those boundaries of what was expected from them and expected from me. And so I've said no to opportunities where people are like, I heard you were a grant writer. Can you write grants for me? And I say no. And I say, here's a referral to a company that would be great for you. And it feels good. It doesn't feel like icky when I say no to opportunities that don't align with what I want to be known for. And so I think, like you said, it's getting really clear on that and getting comfortable with saying no, because I think what you do, more opportunities will show up that actually align with your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you see the role of nonprofit consultants evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? And what trends should aspiring consultants be aware of?
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I think that in every industry, not just this one, but I think in nonprofits, you're going to see more of this because it's mutually beneficial, especially smaller nonprofits that really cannot afford the overhead and the payroll costs and the benefits costs of hiring all of these full-time staff, so that your core team can really focus on delivering the programs that your mission supports. I think that something that is very important, though, as more people transition into this solo entrepreneur consulting role, is going to be building partnerships between consultants. And as you just mentioned, you're saying no to grant writing opportunities, but you're referring them to someone else that you know who handles grants. I think that's super important, that consultants don't need to consider themselves in competition with each other, that a lot of times there's going to be similar opportunities that they're going after, but there's so much work to go around that the more that consultants can band together, and this is what I love really about our program, is this not even what we designed the program for, but what I'm finding happening within our program is that new consultants are connecting with each other offline, one-on-one, having meetups, and trying to figure out ways that their different services are complementary to each other, so that these professionals out in the world are really taking it upon themselves to figure out what nonprofits need, how to structure packages to support those needs, and then bringing them back to the nonprofits at a cost-effective rate that's really based on value. I think that's just so incredible for these professionals who are now going to have control over their lives and over how they work and what they work on, but also for nonprofits to get access to talent that they probably couldn't afford if they were trying to bring it in a full-time role. And I know a couple of things have been tried, but so far there hasn't really been a great breakthrough for how nonprofits can find these consultants who are offering this work. And a lot of times I think nonprofits just don't really know what they need. So that is going to fall on consultants to be getting out in front of nonprofits with thought leadership and different marketing tactics to educate them on what they could be doing and what they could be bringing into their programs. But yeah, I see it growing as a trend. I think that the 9-to-5 W-2 full-time employee role has a place, particularly if your program or your leadership. But I think it's going to really become more lean and really just focus on having that core programmatic staff with consultants filling in these other roles because they're just really good at it and they're keeping up with the trends, and they're going to be a lot more effective than you trying to bring someone in full time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, obviously people can follow you on Instagram, but where else can we learn about your work?
Yeah, so you can find us at Relatable Nonprofit on Instagram. You can find us at relatablononprofit.com, our website. And you can also connect with me, Julia Devine, or my business partner, Catalina Parker, on LinkedIn. We are now posting there twice a week, so you'll see a lot more from us on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your valuable insights. For our listeners who want to learn more about Kat, Julia, and the Relatable Nonprofit, be sure to check out their resources and programs. And until next time, keep leading with heart. If you have valued these stories or learned something from what you've heard, please share this podcast episode or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support, and together we can build a better community and world.